Hello, hello, hello. This is Tamika Seaton, President and CEO of Grow Your Nonprofit. We are coming to you from the Grow Your Nonprofit Podcast Lounge located in the beautiful Fort Myers, Florida. Today, we are so blessed to be interviewing our special guest, the one, the only, Denise Garzon. She is the Assistive Technology Specialist with ThinkAbility, LLC. Hey, Denise, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me today.
Wonderful. I am so delighted that you joined us. Let's start with telling our guests how we met. It was a few weeks ago, right?
Yes. So we went to a luncheon for entrepreneurs.
For entrepreneurs at the Southwest Florida Enterprise Center in Fort Myers in the Dunbar community.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a business incubator. They bring different entrepreneurial speakers in, opportunities for funding, and all sorts of information that is really great to grow your business. So we met there, we exchanged cards, and I've invited you over for an interview. So thank you so much for coming. So Grow Your Nonprofit, what we do, we help startup small and stagnant nonprofits grow through consultant services such as strategic planning, fundraising support, executive support, and everything in between. Our clients come up with some interesting things for us to do. With that said, I'm always interested in business growth. Denise, please share with us how you were able to build your business.
Well, ThinkAbility is a baby. So it just started. I have been in the field for over 8 years, but the company itself, it's just starting. So doing little things like going to, the enterprise center and getting to network with people, it just gives you a really good platform to kind of get started. So with the experience, but it's starting.
Oh, okay. And you know what? Nonprofits, I'm always going to bring it back to nonprofits. When we think about nonprofits, I try to change the mindset of my clients that, okay, you started a nonprofit, but you really started a small business. So you have to run your nonprofit like a business so that you can become profitable. That's right. You can become profitable even though you're a nonprofit. So what advice could you give someone who's just starting out that you wish you had known?
You just have to do it. I think
I like
I
that.
was intimidated for a really long time in believing that you can do it. So for a long time, I was an independent contractor and I was always working for someone else. And then I was realizing that my work was pretty awesome and I could do it on my own. But I was always very intimidated of being my own boss and stuff like that. So you just have to do it.
So why do you think people are intimidated? Because in your business, you tackle solutions for becoming comfortable and understanding new technology. As older adults, you deal with learning disabilities, autism spectrum disorders, depression and anxiety. So with that said, I know tell us a little bit about your background in education. And I know earlier we had a conversation about the brain being a muscle. So first tell us about your background, and then we'll dive into like why, because we are oftentimes our own worst enemy. Like why?
So I love the brain. I actually went to college to study psychology, and then I ended up obtaining a master's in behavioral neuroscience just because I am fascinated of the ability that the brain has to adapt and us to adapt as humans. One thing that has always come into play with the whole field is that you have this nurture versus nature debate where it's like, where am I born with it or is it my environment? And it's always both because you're intertwined with it. So the brain is there to make you function, but it functions with the stimulus that you receive from your environment. So you cannot separate those two. So that thing that you mentioned about being our own worst enemies,
Right.
it's so true because we have a lifetime of conditioning of either having supportive environments where
Right.
you are told that you can do things, or there's other environments that are a little bit less supportive. So
Right.
you grow up having low self-esteem or not believing that you're capable of it, or sometimes you're in a different culture or a different language. I mean, I came from Ecuador, so my whole life until I was 19, I was speaking Spanish, and I was in a very, Latino culture. And then I came to the States as an adult, so you have to kind of rewire your brain
Right.
to a whole different set of culture and rules and just way of being. So that's what I love about, and that's, I think, what the name ThinkAbility came to play. It's that we always have to think about our ability to
Right.
adapt. Like it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, yeah. I like what you said about your environment because you can allow your environment to make you or break you.
Yep.
Because I know earlier we were having a conversation and I said, do you have any hidden talents? And you told me about the art side and you do fire dancing. And I was just thinking that, I grew up in South Central Los Angeles in a time in the 80s where my community was totally ravished by cocaine, crack cocaine, drugs. People that I had grown up with had just been strung out, just destroyed my neighborhood. And I wonder, I'm like, well, how did I make it out? But a lot of people didn't, and they're still there. But you, as an individual, have to come to a point to decide, right? When you're an adult, the choices that I make will make my future. So I decided that I knew that what my environment was not going to be me, and I didn't want that for my future children. So I did everything I could to get out of there. But a lot of people don't have that, so we are our own worst enemy. So let's talk about the brain. How does the brain function, and what strategies we could use to get the maximum, I guess, output from our brain?
That's a great question. So there's still so much that we don't know about it, but it's an interconnection of just communication. So you think about having all these cells that are constantly communicating with each other. So that is what's or neuroplasticity. It would be that if you keep getting certain stimuli, so let's say that you're being told that you're not good enough, so somehow like that part of your brain, not specifically, but like certain cells would get like atrophied, and then you start like getting into depression and stuff like that. Versus if you are receiving different stimuli saying like you're powerful and you can do, and I believe in you, so then you start kind of flourishing those cells. So everything is about action and reaction. So that thing that you mentioned about like you make your own choices is that you could be in an environment that is detrimental to you, but if you don't want that, if you have it within you that you're like, I am going to get out, I am going to believe in myself, and then you get out, then you start getting all this different. So if it's just as silly as being a kid and having a group of friends that it's not the great group,
Right.
And then you get out and you go to a different group and they're better and they're more supportive, and instead of bullying you, they lift you up. So that's when your brain starts to change. You start to change. Your actions start to change. The consequences start to change. So it's all like this huge just chain of events that it is our life.
Yeah.
That never ends. It just continues to evolve.
Yeah. I heard a saying that life is 20% of what happens to you and 80% of how you respond to it.
Yes.
And it's so true. And I was every morning, I know, like, with our body, we obviously have to eat, right? We have to nourish our body in order to function. And I think a lot of people overlook that when it comes to our mind. So for me to continue at the high level that I want to be, I have to always continue feeding my mind. And what I do is morning affirmations, and I listen to your Joel Osteens of the world, Steve Harvey's of the world, who have their stories about persevering. And Steve Harvey this morning, he was talking about how he had to leave his family because in the beginning, when he was trying to become a comedian, he didn't make money for a long time. He was homeless. He slept in his car, and his family said, "Oh, you need to just go get a job. Why are you telling all those jokes? That's not going to make money." And he said, "Well, God gave me the vision. This is what I know. This is what I'm supposed to do. So I'm going to make the sacrifice and just do it anyway, no matter what the naysayers are saying." And he had to walk away from his family. And now, guess what? He's wealthy. And he said he forgave his family because they didn't know any better, but he knew he had to take himself out of that environment where he was not being supported. So I find that really interesting that not waiting around for someone to validate you of a vision that somebody else gave you. For example, this particular podcast lounge, I a lot of friends say, "Oh, Tamika, you should start a podcast. You're doing so much." And I said, "Well, if I started a podcast, I wouldn't want to do one at home because they said, oh, you can just do it at home." And I said, "No, that would be boring. I would be at a table. I'll be recording it. I probably do a few episodes and get bored." I said I wanted to open one and have a platform for not only myself but for the community to have this. And it's like, "Oh, it's going to be so expensive." I said, "Don't worry about it." I said, "You know what?" I was like, "Why am I asking other people's opinion?" Because God gave me the vision. And I said, "I don't know where the money's coming from, but it's going to happen." And then sure enough, it happened. The money showed up and I was able to put it all together. So with that said,
Your studio is spectacular.
thank you. Thank you.
Oh, I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. And you know what? I got 90% of the stuff off of Facebook Marketplace. I rented a truck. I was in Cape Coral, Punta Gorda, Naples, driving all around town for it. And I was telling people what I was doing. And they started giving me stuff for free. These 2 mirrors, I got that for free. Some of the artwork I got for free. They said, "Just take it. We just want to get rid of it." So it's just really amazing. Now, on your website, I was looking at some of your other offerings, and I noticed executive functioning. That's very, very important, not only as a business owner, but if you're in a leadership, high level role. Self-care is very important because oftentimes you're worried about so much. You have to make payroll. You have to keep the lights on. You have so much. You have your employees. You have to keep them happy because you want to retain. So for you, you have executive functioning is our ability to plan ahead, prioritize tasks, start and stop activities, transition from one activity to another, and monitor one's own behavior. Let's dive in a little bit deeper to monitoring one's own behavior. What does that mean, and how can we monitor our own behavior?
It's a great question. So, when I was in college and I was taking all these psychology classes, surprisingly enough, one of the classes that really, really taught me so much was Communication 101. And it was how to learn to communicate with other people and how to listen to other people.
Muy importante.
Yes. So sometimes we are blind to our own behavior. We tend to kind of go out into the world and just act and react a lot. And then stuff happens. People react, they act a certain way, you get into conflicts, and then you're like, I don't know what happened. You know, it's just a lot of unknowns. But if you just stop for a minute and just pay attention of how other people are reacting to you, that is really a mirror of how you're presenting yourself. So if I go to ask you something and you react kind of negatively, maybe I asked you in a tone that it wasn't appropriate, and I might not be aware of it. You know, and we encounter that all the time. Like, we just are out in the store and then suddenly somebody is angry, and instead of reacting to that anger and be like, well, that cashier was the worst, just sit a minute and be like, what happened to that cashier today that made her in a terrible mood? Because everything, like I said, is a chain of reactions to things. So once you kind of get, because we're self-centered as a human force, like we have to, because that's how we react to things. We're always in survival mode, trying to like process information. So our brain is a very egotistical little organ. It's just, because it's always looking for itself. You're always you know, trying to
survival.
You're always trying to protect yourself, and you're learning, and then you're reacting and stuff like that. So if you kind of go a level higher of that and not operate so autonomically, you know, or just like very robotically, but actually have a little bit more of awareness. And that's where like empathy comes in, and like comprehension, and just all these other levels of awareness that come on top of that, then you have a little bit more power over that mechanistic organ that's making you act and react. Now you're like, wait a minute. So instead of fighting back, I'm just going to be a little bit more empathetic about their situation and maybe offer a smile instead. And then you diffuse a conflict. So you have to kind of bring that awareness. And I think the biggest thing is to understand that it's okay to be wrong sometimes. Like, it's not a big deal.
Right.
And if it's not so much the errors that you make in your life, it's how you come out of it. You know, so if I get in a fight with you and, you know, our friendship got kind of ruined, well, it wasn't the fight itself. It was just, you know, we had a conflict. But if we're able to communicate and I sit with you and I'm like, Tamika, you know, I'm sorry, or I didn't appreciate how you spoke to me. It hurt my feelings. And instead of you reacting, being like, well, I didn't say anything, or I didn't mean to, like, you're fueling the fire, you just acknowledge that I got hurt or whatever, and then just be like, you know, if we care for our relationship, you're just going to be like, well, even if I don't remember doing this, even if I don't remember saying this to you, I am so sorry, because I would never want to hurt you like that. And then that diffuses the conflict. So it's really bringing this awareness and wanting to, you know, maintain your relationships and take care of them and not say things out of anger or just without thinking. Like, everything has a reaction. So even as little words, words actually, if you think back to your childhood, I think to my childhood, so certain words that were told by peers or parents or family that just stick with you. And it was just the word. You know? So it's very important to be aware of the power that we have.
Exactly. Because as a child, I remember elementary school was okay, but when I got to junior high school, I was teased a lot because I didn't fit in. And what I mean by that, imagine living in the community where everybody looks like you, but you speak differently than everyone. Supposedly you speak more proper. Now you think you better than us. You're an Oreo, and you don't fit into your own community that you were born and reared in. And I would go home and cry to my mother and say what they were doing and what they were talking about. And she would say, sticks and stones may break your bones, but names will never hurt you. And I was like, no, those names hurt. They hurt. And I didn't really start receiving, I guess, respect until I actually had to get a little crazy and get a little angry and yell, and actually had a few fights. But then I had enough. I told my mother, especially when I went to high school, I said, if you don't check me out of this school, I'm dropping out of school. And I was serious because I loved school, but I just couldn't take it anymore. And somehow she was able to get me transferred to, I don't know if you know Crenshaw High School, but it's a high school in Los Angeles. It's featured in a few movies, but it was more of like a middle class black neighborhood. I went in and disappeared. No one cared about the way I spoke. No one cared about me. Like, it was like I just went and disappeared, and I finished my senior year like with no problem. And it's just amazing.
Wasn't that like a liberating feeling?
Right.
You're just like, I can be myself.
Yeah, and it's like nobody cared. But so there is a such thing as classism. So I moved to a different class, even though I was so-called born in the lower class, and I fit right in. And that's just something how your environment does not necessarily make you. So going back to executive functioning, impulsive control, that kind of really stuck out to me because I know every time I've made a decision based on my emotions and not using my brain, most of the times it's a bad decision. So I try. I'm not always 100% with this, but I try if I'm upset, especially with business and my personal life. I try to wait 24 hours before I respond, because if I respond right away, it's not going to be good. So as a professional, how could we control and be self-aware of being impulsive when we're emotional or we're upset?
The first thing that's crucial for this to work is that you have to want it to make it work. So if you're unaware that you're causing this chaos in your life, then it doesn't matter what I say. You're going to continue being chaotic. But you've gotten to a point where like you realize, okay, what I'm doing is not working out. So you're accepting change. That's a huge thing first. Second, what you just said, that 24 hours, or it can be something simple as like just breathe. That's where like you have the whole field of meditation, and when you're just calm yourself down, nothing in anger is going to make sense. Like our brain is so flooded with adrenaline and just like you're not thinking anymore. Like you're just in this fight mode. You are literally not thinking. So whatever comes out of your mouth, it's just gonna ruin it.
Right.
You know? So you gotta just be able to calm, and then you can start bringing in little strategies. So you have those color books that became really popular for adults, where you just like take a minute, go outside, take a breath, wait 24 hours. But you want to have that awareness to be able to do that. Because if you are constantly in this automatic mode, you're just going to continue, trampling through everything. You have to learn, and it's a skill. Like that's what's the beauty about it. That it's not that, well, some people have it and some people don't. Everybody has it. You just have to want it. And then you're going to have to work on it. It might not work. You might get in a fight and say a couple words that you didn't mean to, but then you come back and you're like, I did not mean to. And then those fights keep getting shorter and shorter, or you keep getting in less and less trouble because you're pausing and you're, okay, so I'm reacting this way. Is it beneficial to me? No. Well, then let's do something different. And then once you start seeing changes in other people, like when you start seeing that people are not reacting to you, that's kind of like your mirror where you're like, I think I'm handling things a little bit better.
Yeah.
And be nice to yourself.
Yeah.
That's the huge thing, because especially if you are in a path of change and then you fall for a minute, like you just did something that you weren't supposed to, then you throw everything in the garbage. Like we just have that, no, I'm the worst and this is not working. And it's just like, it's okay to have, we all fall.
Yeah.
It's okay. So just get back up, dust yourself off, and then, look at the hole next time and don't fall in it.
Yeah.
Because now you have that awareness of it. So it's a practice. It's a skill.
Very good. So what advice could you give someone who is an entrepreneur, business owner in a high level position to, I guess, continue on, or self-care, or what's one thing they need to do every morning or every day to get through the tough times and the good times?
You have to understand that if you are not functioning right, then everything you do is going to be not great. So you have to be, it's like when you're sick and you're trying to take care of someone else. Like you can't fully take care of them if you're falling apart.
Right.
So as a boss, you have a lot on your plate.
Right.
Which is amazing. And you should reward yourself. You should, give yourself credit for all this and give yourself a break. Give yourself some time, So if in the morning you drink some coffee, instead of immediately checking your phone or checking your email, just go outside and have your coffee. What takes 20 minutes, but it's for you.
Right.
And then throughout the day is very important, because then we get burned out. So with the executive functioning, the main goal of executive functioning is learning to be organized in planning. And we were talking a little bit about this before, and it's that we do live in a world where there is so much stimulus. If you send me a video that's over, 30 seconds, I'm like, it's too much.
Yeah.
So we're constantly scrolling. We're constantly changing.
Yeah.
And our brain is not really meant to do that. Like if you think about our biology, it has not changed since it kind of came about, but our culture has changed immediately.
Wow. Yeah.
So So our brain takes a minute.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it takes a minute to settle into the activity, fully get on it. But if you get change or like notifications keep coming your way, then you lose that thought. And then it just creates this cascade of overwhelmingness that you just can't seem to get out of it. So organize, and that's where I think assistive technology is not only for people that have disabilities, it's actually for everybody.
Right,
I think that
exactly.
the technology that we have now, it's incredible, the amount of tools that we have at our disposal with just little things like set yourself a timer for a specific task. So you can do for work or even chores. Let's say you have to throw in a load of laundry in the meantime. Do that 10 minutes to do that, and then you can go back to your work or take a break or do this. So you're planning your day a little bit better, which gives you that sense of control. I think a lot of the problem is that we feel overwhelmed because we feel that we've lost the sense of control. So having control over your own time is a gift.
Yeah, yeah. And what I had to learn was to set boundaries because in the beginning when I started my business, I was just happy to have a client. And then when clients know that you're the sole owner of the business and they have access to you, they have your cell phone. So I had clients calling me like on the weekend at 9 o'clock at night, texting me over silly stuff that could have waited until the next business day or or during business hours. And I started to get upset. I said, well, they don't respect my boundaries. I said, no, I need to set the boundaries. So what I recently did was put on my website business hours 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Of course, no one sees that. That's at the footer. However, I'm actually in the process of getting a separate business line and keeping the line that's which is currently my cell phone for my business, and then creating a personal telephone number specifically for me. And but now when clients call me after a certain time or they text, I just don't respond. I don't respond until the next business day. I say it could wait.
Right.
Because if you don't set boundaries, I don't think they're really conscious of it. There's like, oh, I have a question for her. Let me call her or let me text. But once you set boundaries and you train people how to teach you, that's a game changer. And then on the weekend, I try not to do anything or go to any functions unless it's, I'm supporting a fellow business owner or someone invited me to stuff. But I try to spend the weekend for me. Yes. That's my self time. That's my family time. So after 5 and on the weekends, that's all for me. I try. For the most part, I'm better than I used to be. But setting the boundaries in self-care at those specific times, which for me are the weekends, it's just really huge.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
And if you want, like, you're in control. So if on the weekend you feel like working, that's okay. You're happy, but it's that pressure that we constantly feel of like, I have to do this. And it's like, no, you don't.
Nope, you don't.
You can take a minute.
You don't. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. But before we leave, Denise.
Yes.
Tell us what we're going to see from Denise in the next 2 years.
Ooh, I like that. Well, like I mentioned before, ThinkAbility, it's a baby, but I have full belief that it's going to... What I love about it is that I'm in the field of helping people. So either learn a skill or, if they have a disability, incorporate technology to actually help them acquire work or to be able to go to school and do all this fabulous stuff. So I really just love the helping part. Like my success is seeing other people's successes. So I think that the more clients that I get, it's kind of like this cascade effect. So like if I can see people really flourishing and doing what they're doing the best, then I feel like I've done a success.
Right.
So just one client at a time. Let's get this moving.
Yeah, that's very important. I kind of feel the same way. If my client isn't successful, then I haven't done my job. And I like to set myself up where my client eventually fires me, because that means they're functioning so great on their own. They've hired staff that they don't need me anymore. And people scratch their heads like, why would you want your client to fire you? I said, well, because it'll make room for me to help other people. I've done my job. They don't need me anymore.
Right.
So I've had clients that started off working in their business part-time to having a staff and a $400,000 budget, earning more money than me. And I was like, oh my God, it's so great. I help them get there, and I'm not working with them anymore because they have a whole new team. And that's what you want for your clients.
Right.
That's what you want. So before we leave, Denise, tell the audience how they can get in contact with you.
Well, my phone number is 317-319-0037. And my website is www.thinkabilityllc.com. And my contact information is obviously on the website too. One thing that I do wanted to kind of get the word out there is, for example, I know a lot of the assistive technology is for people that have disabilities, but I also have pretty big focus on older adults that want to learn and get comfortable with computers. I mean, they're from different generations where computers were not, in their hand the whole time. And I feel like they are missing out on a whole new world, especially like just for little things that are moving into like online banking and stuff like that, that they feel like they're left behind, which I don't think it's fair. I think that should be able to move forward with the rest of us. So just to, so I will be like a technology tutor too, just to be able to come to you and, teach you how to make your phone work right, or your tablet, or little stuff like that, just so you know what you're doing and you also feel protected. I think there's a lot of predatory stuff on the internet, especially targeting people that are not too comfortable with computer and technology. So I make it a mission of mine to educate people about scams and stuff like that. I think that's really huge, especially for vulnerable
populations. Yeah, so that's very important.
Yeah, so my number is 317-319-0037. I have some flyers around town for a technology tutor too, but that would be the best way to get a hold of me.
Okay. Well, guys, that's our story, and we're sticking to it. This is Tamika. I'm out, and this is
Denise with ThinkAbility.
Okay. So if you have any questions, please reach out to us, and you can reach out to me on our website at growyournon-profit.com. Text to 239-293-2009. Thank you, guys.